Hi, good morning.
Good morning, everyone.
Good morning, friends. It's good to be with you. While we're waiting for everybody to log in, I want to give a shout out to Zek and your photo with your mask on it. That's that's got to be the first one I've seen of that kind.
Hello.
Hey.
I should get some earbuds.
Almost everyone is on. Good morning, everyone. It's 9 a.m. We'll get started. Great to have you with us this morning. And in particular, all those who are not directly associated with the Boston Fellows program as alumni or current fellows, we're very glad to have you. I'm Kelly Madden. I run the Boston Fellows program. Boston Fellows equips emerging leaders to serve God and neighbor in the working world. Our main emphasis is our 9-month program. We also have industry cohorts that meet for shorter periods of time, 8 weeks in general, that drill down on the specifics of, for example, professions in STEM or finances or healthcare. These events on Saturday, we call them Teaching Saturdays, happen 6 times a year. This is our second one this year, and we're delighted to have guests with us this morning for this public event. This is an event that we've done several times. This topic is one that we have often dealt with. I'd like to present Yvonne Mitto. Yvonne is one of just a handful of people that have spoken to the Boston Fellows almost as many times as I have every year. I think Yvonne has spoken at least 7 or 8 times to the Boston Fellows, and we're delighted to have her with us this morning. I'll introduce her a little bit better in just a moment. Our day is structured in a post that I just put in chat for everyone. If you want to take a look at how we're going to spend the time, there are 2 breaks that are structured into our day. One at 10 a.m. and one at 11 a.m. And we have allotted 10 minutes for each of those. And the reason we did that is to make sure that you had 2 purposes. One, that you could actually have a moment when you could get out, get away from your screen, go grab a cup of coffee, do whatever else you need to do. And I do recommend that you take that time to take a break from your computer rather than checking emails or texts or those kinds of things, to stick your head outside or to get a coffee or to just take a breath of fresh air, so that you can be fully present with us when we're together during our times, and not be distracted or fatigued by the wear and tear of Zoom calls. So take a look at that schedule. We may not follow that exactly. There's always challenges, and particularly when we're using technology, one of the things I like to say is that technology will always fail you in your hour of greatest need. So it's possible that we have challenges in what we're doing today. Yvonne, it's great to have you with us this morning.
Thanks, Kelly. It's really great to be with you and with everyone today. Looking forward to it.
Yeah. Everyone, Yvonne Mitto is Executive Director of Compass New England and a certified member of the John Maxwell team. Yvonne works with leaders of churches and faith-based organizations to equip people in the area of biblical financial stewardship. Her passion is to inspire, equip, and challenge individuals with the life-transforming message of faithfully living by God's financial principles in every area of their lives. I mentioned, Yvonne, that you've been with us for many times over many years. I think you may have even spoken to the very first class of Boston Fellows 11 years ago. And just for everyone else's benefit, when Yvonne first joined us, she was Executive Director of Compass New England. Since that time, she's come on the board of Compass Nationwide, the national international organization of Compass, whose tagline is "Finance is God's Way." She's also become a member of John Maxwell's team, and even now has become more recently member of John Maxwell's President's Advisory Council. So we're really pleased, Yvonne, your connection with the Boston Fellows has obviously been a great move for your career. After having been involved with us, you've really ascended to places of influence, and we're glad that we could help you out in that way and be a contribution to your career. No, I'm kidding, but it is delightful to have you with us this morning. Yvonne, please, by all means, lead us in this in understanding better how we can be good stewards of God's resources in our lives.
Thank you so much, Terry. It's always a joy and a delight to be with the Boston Fellows, and now an extension of the Boston Fellows. So this is great. This is the first time we're doing it online. We usually are in person. So again, I just love technology. And yes, Kelly, yeah, you have contributed to my success. The Boston I've been speaking with the Boston Fellows for a number of years. So thank you so much. It has just been such a great partnership. And thanks to everyone. It's a delight to be with you this morning. I'm calling in from Connecticut. So it's not too far, but I still don't have to fight the traffic to get into Boston today. So I just want to let you know what I'll be doing this morning is really talking about the biblical principles around finances. And I know we have limited time, so I'm not going to get in depth in a whole lot of things, but just really want to share with you this morning so that, and hopefully it will be something that can benefit you as you go forward and move forward with your finances. So what I want to let you know is that I talk a lot about faith and finance, and that is really how do we manage our finances based on the principles of the Bible? Because we know we manage our finances in different ways, but when we have God's principles surrounding that, it's just so amazing. So my question is, what does one have to do with the other, faith and finance? And many times we sort of wrestle with that to say, it's either finance or it's either faith. But it's when we have a combination of both, it's such an exciting thing. So that's one of the questions I'll put before you as we go through this session. What does it have? How does it relate? And what God really says about how we manage our finances? So I know finances have a profound effect on our faith. And no matter our situation, they can help us to cultivate an attitude of generosity, of gratitude, of contentment, of trust. And when we discover how we manage our finances God's way, it's all about using the resources that we have in a way that honors God and glorifies Him. And it helps us to grow in our relationship with Christ. And what better people to really lead by example in the area of finances than we as Christians. Before I begin, I would like to give you just a brief overview of Compass. You may not be familiar with Compass. Compass is an interdenominational ministry that teaches people of all ages and all economic status how to manage their finances based on the principles of the Bible. And it goes the gamut from those who have a little to those who have a lot. Many times we hear people say, I don't have enough money. So it doesn't make sense thinking about that. But if we don't start by when we have a little, when we get a lot, we're not going to put those practices into place. So it's so important that we do that. And as Kelly mentioned, I work with pastors and leaders to develop a culture of financial discipleship and generosity in churches and Christian organizations. And my passion is really to inspire, equip, and challenge individuals with a life-transforming message of faithfully living by God's financial principles in every single area of their lives, not only as it relates to finances, but in every area. And our vision as a ministry is to see everyone, everywhere, faithfully living by God's financial principles in every area of their lives. And we're on a mission to equip people worldwide to faithfully apply God's financial principles so they may know Christ more intimately, be free to serve Him, and help fund the Great Commission. So it's not only about we manage our finances so we can get rich or we can get out of debt, but it's really having that sound biblical principles behind what we do and how we do. So you will notice I don't have any handout today, and that is very intentional. And here's why. Many times, I know I do that. Many times we attend an event, whether it's a webinar or a live conference, and of course we get handouts and we use our electronics or phone or iPad or even our computer, and we take a lot of notes. However, most of the time, and I can speak for myself, I will get home and here's what happened. We get back into the business of life and we put our notes down and we never go back to taking it up. So my challenge for you today, and that's why I didn't hand out any notes, is to do what I call the ACT and put that in practice. And what that is, the A is apply, the C is for change, and the T is for teach. So based on what you're going to be hearing today, this morning, is there something that you need to apply? And if that ring a bell, then you sort of circle a little A there. And then there's the C, which is based on what I'm doing now and what I just heard, is there something that I need to change? And then you sort of circle a C. And then the T is that, is there something that I've learned today that I am willing to teach to others? Because if we get information, just keep it by ourselves, then and nothing will happen. But I know that as I teach, I learn a lot. So that's a principle that I have applied. And I've been using the system for a while and it works very well for me. So I hope you'll do that. That's like it's called the ACE principle. And try that today and see how it works. And I would love to hear how it works for you. And hopefully that's a little tip I would love to give to you. Okay, so first, let me put everyone at ease by saying that we are all on a journey, a financial journey. So we can all take a little breath and give a little bit of relief to say, I am not alone on this financial journey. We are all on this journey. However, this financial journey will either be based on God's financial principles or our financial principles, either God's way or our way. And the Bible has a lot to talk about finances. And when we apply God's financial principles, our lives will be transformed, because I truly believe that God is in the life transforming business. And the Bible contains over 2,330 verses dealing with money and possessions. And 15% of all that God says has to do with money. So that's why it's so important for us to learn what God says about our finances. Our finances can have a profound impact on our faith. No matter what our situation, they can help us to cultivate an attitude of generosity, of gratitude, of contentment, of trust in God, and allowing God to work through us as it relates to our finances. Discovering financial faithfulness is about using the resources that we have in a way that honors and glorifies God. And it helps us to grow in our relationship with Him. Because many times if we're focusing on finance, if we don't have a lot and we're focusing, or we have a whole lot and that's what we focus, then God takes second step. But as we merge both together and allow God to work in our finances, He will really allow us to have that peace and contentment. For Christians, a universal catchphrase, we hear most time is that Lord and Savior. Jesus being our Lord means that He has control over everything that we do, over our entire life. And it means that we need to submit to Him. And many times we'll submit everything to God except our finances. And one of the stories I always like to hear is about the unbaptized arm. And it was a story that someone was getting baptized and they get in the water, but they put their hand up. So that means you can take everything else, but the money part, I'm still in control. So that they termed it the unbaptized arm, holding up that hand to say, this is what I do, this is where my money is. but we need to really submit everything to Christ. It means that Christ is the Lord of our pocketbooks, and he's the Lord of our wallets. And he's the Lord of our money apps nowadays, because many times that's what we do. And he has so much to say about it. And what we spend, what we buy, what we don't buy, how we save, how much we give, all those are biblical principles. Those are not man-made principles, but biblical principles. So this morning, what I want to do is just to lay the foundation on how to develop biblical principles or biblical worldview of the way we manage our finances. And we'll do some, look at the principles that we apply, and we'll just talk about our personal financial journey as we begin. So let me start with a passage of scripture with Joshua 1 verse 8. And Joshua told the Israelites in Joshua 1:8, this book of the law shall not depart from your mouth, but you shall meditate on it day and night, so that you may be careful to do according to all that is written in it. For then you will make your way prosperous, and then you will have success.
Yvonne, would you like us to put that up on the screen at this point? So that verse and some other things? Okay.
Yeah, I thought, is the presentation good? Because I can't see the presentation.
Right. Yeah. No, we were just waiting for a cue from you. That's all right. We'll get it up right away so that we can. There we go. It started. It's going now.
That's right. I have to remember I can't mess up because I'm not controlling my PowerPoint. About that.
Yeah.
Do you need a specific cue from me as we
just tell us when we want to advance? We're screening down to the verse now in Joshua. It's where, that you just cited is where we're going. So, can you see that on your screen now?
Yeah, I can see our financial.
Okay, good. So, we're just coming to the Joshua passage.
Oh, so they were not seeing the screen. I'm so sorry.
It's okay. We weren't sure. I didn't cue anybody, and that's. But now, okay, now you can see the. Now you can see this the verse. So go ahead. Sorry.
Sorry about that. So Joshua says that success and prosperous journey will come from meditating and understanding the principles we will be discussing today. So that's a profound verse, and one that I really like to think about every time I talk about finances or it's finance related. And just having that principle to say we need to meditate on God's word. And while these principles were given over 2,000 years ago, Joshua's words still apply to us today in 2020. So these are not for the people in the past. These also apply for us today. So we should apply these words in our giving, in our saving, in our investing, in our credit decisions, anything that we make as it relates to finances, this verse does relate to it. So now let's look at God's view of wealth and how we can start down this journey of managing our finances based on the principles of the Bible. And Kelly, you can flip that. Oh, I think you jump ahead one.
Okay, let's go back just one from this video. There we go. So right after is there something between Joshua and the video?
Just go ahead and play the video and then we'll.
Okay. Is there a sound involved here? Maybe that we're not. Okay, we may need to get sound up, guys.
Do you want me to drive, Kelly, from here?
I think the challenge is getting sound on. I've noticed this challenge before, that sometimes there's a particular adaptation that needs to be made to. There we go.
That money offers success, security, and even significance. It says that we'll feel better if we just have a little bit more. But when we look around, do people with more really seem happier? Or better yet, let's look at ourselves. We are the wealthiest nation in the world. Even those at the poverty line in America have more than 85% of the rest of the world. If this is true, why do we have so much financial fear and discontentment? When it comes to money, we will never experience true, lasting contentment until we answer two questions. First, who owns the money? And second, how much is enough? It turns out that the Bible also has a lot to say about money and provides clear, simple answers to these questions. First, it says that God owns it all. Psalm 24:1 says, "The earth is the Lord's, and everything in it, the world and all who live in it." Believing this means that we are merely taking care of His money, not our money. We call this stewardship. Our focus changes from what do I want to do with my money to what does God want me to do with His money. In fact, He uses money as a tool to shape us, as a test of trust and obedience, and as a testimony to shine light into a dark world. Answering the second big question, how much is enough, is a journey leading to true contentment. You see, we all have a finite financial pie of a certain size. With this pie, we can only use money in a few ways: to live, give, owe, and grow. Before using any money, we should all heed the words of Hebrews 13:5 by being content with what we have. We must choose contentment. Next, we interact with God, who owns the whole pie, to decide how much is enough for each wedge. The pie allows us to see that there are no independent financial decisions within the pie. It reveals that if we have a long-term perspective, we make better decisions for today. For each wedge, the Bible provides wisdom that applies all the time for any size of pie. Spend less than you earn because every financial success depends on it. Give generously because giving breaks the power money has over our lives. Avoid debt because debt always mortgages the future. Pay taxes with gratitude because they are symptomatic of God's provision. Plan for financial margin because the unexpected will happen. And to make it all work, set long-term goals because there's always a trade-off between the short-term and the long-term. This is our stewardship journey. This journey leads us to contentment, confidence, and better communication. God's financial wisdom changes the way we think, act, and communicate about money. So let's listen to what God says about money, rather than what the world says.
Okay, so that was done by one of our partners, the Run Blue organization, and they focus on finances and investing and how we manage, again, really true partnership with them about teaching the biblical principles, both nationally and internationally. So I would love to see some chat going about what did you gain from that video that was shown? Did it make sense? Is it something that you thought about as you look at all those pies? And what's your thoughts on it?
That video is really powerful. It's got so many great principles in it there. I wonder is there a link that we could put up that maybe if we don't have it right at hand, we'll find it later for people to be able to review that. I love how much is in that.
Yeah, definitely. Maybe we could do a link. I can give that to you, cool. Because that is so powerful that that it's not only about spending or saving, but it all encompasses all those things that the video went through. So it's really, really exciting to think about it in a holistic way rather than just in a regular way. Before we go to the next slide, because I think we're getting on to about the money map, which I'm going to be walking through that planning. But when we look at wealth, and I thought there was a slide on that, but moving on. We look at wealth, we look at it from there's man's view and there is God's view of wealth. So many times when we think about money and possession, it's many times it's different from God's view of it. And Webster's dictionary defines wealth as the abundance of valuable material, possessions, or resources. So some words we refer to when we talk about wealth as an individual or as a person. When we think about wealth, we think about success. We think about affluence. We think about prosperity and the luxury and all that. Many times that's what we think about. So that's from man's viewpoint. But when we think about it from God's viewpoint, it looks a little different, because we think about, instead of thinking about money as security and money, telling that money brings happiness to us and we can increase worldly wealth, we just go and go and go. That's not what God's definition of wealth is. What it is our identity with Christ. So that's where the practical and the spiritual come together. As we think about money or wealth, our view, or God's view, is really our identity with Christ. And our security doesn't come from all the money that we have, what we try to accumulate, but it comes from God. And if we manage it well, He will continue to bless us. And generosity equals happiness. Not if we have a lot of things or have a lot of money that includes happiness. But as we're generous, we are happy. And if you talk to a lot of people who give a lot, they'll tell you they're more blessed than the people they give to. And we increase our eternal wealth when we look at it from God's perspective, not increasing our worldly wealth. So many people live just to increase their worldly wealth. We as believers focus much more differently, and it's increasing our eternal wealth. How can we impact lives? And nothing is wrong with having a lot of money or wealth, but we can use that to impact the kingdom of God. And not just for ourselves, not just to buy our toys and have fun and doing all that stuff, but how can we use what we have, what God has blessed us with? Because remember, it's not just us gaining it, it's God has blessed us. And I always say many times God gives us education and a great job, and many times we use that for us. But if we can just turn the tide and use it to say, I'm going to use this to impact lives for God's kingdom, then that can make such a difference. And when you talk to many people, they will say, when I had my job, I thought it was the greatest thing. But as God called me into the ministry, to whether it's at work, because we can still be at work in corporate or wherever and still impact lives right there. So we don't have to leave and go on the missions field, we can do both. But the important thing is, as we focus on what we're doing, the key is make sure we are focusing on what God wants us to do. And that is the important thing. So what I'm going to do right now is going to briefly run through what we call the money map. And I'm going to make sure I'm keeping time, because I know we are going to be right on time. So that's why I'm watching the clock. So sorry about that. So let's talk a little bit about the money map. And we can put the map up now. Kevin.
What did I say about technology failing in your hour of greatest need?
Okay, so I just want to start with the money map. I just want to say, if we're taking a trip, we need a map. And now we don't have paper map as much, but we're using our phones, and we're using everything electronically to do that. And it's important that when we're planning, we know where we're starting from. And I always use this with Boston fellas, that if I was driving from here to Connecticut, from Connecticut to Boston, I would have to plug in where I'm going, and so that the GPS will take me exactly where I want to go. If I mess up, I'm not going to be on the right road. It's not going to be the right destination. So Compass Map that we have created is something just like that. It's similar to our device or a paper map. So what I'm going to do is just briefly go through it, and I'm just going to briefly go through the map. and walk you through very briefly, because I don't know, we don't have a lot of time. Usually we spend time on this and really talk through every single destination. But
So the idea is we're just going sort of step by step towards true financial faithfulness and freedom. So these are like hit the first one first, and then
exactly. So as we look at it, we see, for example, where we start and how we start with that. So it's just, again, a brief overview, and it's practical that we can really look at it and achieve what we call true financial freedom. And true financial freedom is when we are there to say, God, we are all yours. Even with my pocketbook, I have given it to you. So you'll notice there are 7 destinations. And for some of us, getting to true financial freedom is going to take a whole lot of time. For others, it may take a short period of time, but no matter what, it's so important that we strive for that. Just like how I would leave from here to Boston, and where I want to go is to Boston. The same thing applies with as we walk through that. And you can find that compass. I'm not going to walk through it step by step, because there are directions and the map on the Compass website, which is at www.compass1.org. That's www.compass1.org. And you can find that there and walk through it and look at, where am I? And the question is, where are you on that map? And even if you haven't started yet, you can start. And with God's help and through prayer, you will get there. And there's so many people with testimonies that shared about what God has done as they set their heart to where they are, and then make up their mind to say, I am not going to do what I used to do, but do it my way. Because many times we said, I'm going to do it my way. That was a very popular song, doing it my way. But we're going to say, we're going to make up our mind to do it God's way. And once we do that and allow God to lead us, it's amazing what God can do. So again, I'm not going to run through that. That sometimes we just do that by itself, and allowing you to see step by step where you need to go, how you need to do it, and what you need to do. And as you put God in the center of that, then it's amazing what God will do. So again, remember, you can download that map at www.compass1.org. Kelly, any questions on the map and that anyone has? That
yeah, we haven't seen any questions in chat yet, but I'll bring those up. I should mention, Ivana, the Boston Fellows proper have all received this map as actually part of their assignment. But we'll put a link for our guests today too in chat in just a moment.
Yeah, if you could just share it with them, and again, they can get it right from the website. Okay, so let's go to the next slide. Okay, I played that video today because I want to focus a little bit on debt. And in this pandemic that we're in, it has highlighted more than ever before the way we as people are living above our means and not planning. So going back to the pandemic, I want to give an example that one of the things that had bothered me and has really allowed me to just get a renewed passion for doing what I'm doing is I can recall just right after the pandemic started, there were people on the news who said, I cannot pay my rent or I cannot pay my mortgage. That tells me that they were using everything they have, whatever comes in, that's what went out. And they haven't been saving or doing anything else. And that worries me a lot, not just young people, but there were many older people who were saying the same thing. Another thing that it highlights for me as I listen to the news and or listen to others and even people at my church, is that I would see pantries or other things set up, and there were people driving $50,000-$60,000 SUV. And when I think they were pulling up to open the back to give food to those who would be in need, they were the ones who were taking the bags. Now, something is really wrong. And I know the pandemic has been going on now for a long time. And I'm not saying that right now, with so many months, people can't be in need. They can, because not everyone has the wherewithal. But I start thinking, if we, the key is to really set aside, not spend everything that we have. And as you see that video, understanding what debt is and how, and debt is bondage. And I always say that because we are in bondage. If we owe, we're in bondage. I used to work in corporate, and people would hate their jobs, executives, but they have to come to work. It's like I owe, but off to work I go. It's not because they're making a difference. It's not because they like their job. But when they think about the amount of debt that they have, there's no choice. And I'm spending this time to talk about that, to encourage us that if we are in debt, we can get out of debt by God's help. But we have to make that decision to say, this is not the way I'm going to do things anymore. I'm not going to do it my way. I'm going to do it God's way. And God speaks, the Bible speaks a lot about debt. So I will encourage all of us on this session, in the session today, that if, and again, I'm not saying we owe or we don't, but I'm encouraging us, if we are at the point where we find ourselves spending more than we are taking in, or spending everything that we're taking in, we have to do some assessment. And I just want to encourage all of us to, no matter where we are right now, even if we're in dire straits and if we're in debt, God is able. So I just want to give you that assurance to say, God is able, no matter where you are. You will hear stories about people who were thousands and thousands and thousands of dollars in debt, but they take step at a time, one step at a time, and allowing God to work through them. Sometimes they see the multiplication effect instead of the addition. So we specialize in addition, God specializes in multiplication. So trust God in every area, which includes your finances, and allow him to work. And don't be down in this pandemic. Don't be downcast. Trust God, because he is able to do more than we can ever think or imagine. So I just want to throw that encouraging word out there. I know many of us are going through a lot right now. For young people, jobs are getting tight. And one of the things I normally talk about a lot is on student loans and what is going on around that. So I know what is happening. I know how it's going on, but let us use this time to really set ourselves up to say, if I'm there right now, I will never be there again. Or if I know somebody, and then this is where the teaching comes in, because as you learn, it's so important to teach others and to keep that ball going. I don't have to do this. You don't have to do finance ministry to teach someone about finances, but as you learn it and you apply it and you see the results, share it with others so they in turn can pass that on. My desire is to see all of us as Christians be financially free so we can help as many people as we can. Not just give them money, not just give them fish, but teach them how to fish. And that is so.
The other thing on that that's really important, Yvonne, I've seen people that are able to get ahead, and it frees them to be able to make some decisions if they need to. They don't have to stick with this particular job. They have a little bit of margin that allows them to move around. Whereas if you're underwater, it's just very difficult to move and to take and to put yourself out there, or to get away from a situation that's really difficult.
Exactly. Great point, Kelly. And I remember when I made the decision to go into ministry. I worked in corporate, love my job. When people ask me what I do for a living, I used to say they pay me to have fun. I was in corporate affairs at that time, and as God was putting my heart and calling, I kept resisting it because I mean everything looked so good. I was on that hill, that upward mobility standpoint from a corporate standpoint, and but when I made the decision, so a couple things. If I had been practicing the biblical principles before I made that shift, so I had made a lot of changes in my life. And the ministry that I'm working for right now, that's the ministry that had helped me to work through that. And as I was wrestling with God about that decision and sort of looking at where, from a family standpoint, where we are, my husband and I have 3 kids, and I said, there's no way we can do that. And once I say yes to God, which shocked a lot of my corporate friends, but once I say yes, it was amazing how God worked. And it will take me days and days and hours and years to share with you what God has done in our family because I say yes to him.
So cool.
I believe that if I had gone my way, things would be much more different right now than going God's way. So I thank God that I went God's way. So for all of you in corporate, yes, if God is nudging you, I'm not going to say just jump because you're going to wrestle a lot with him, but allow him to work through you and in you, and he will just take care of everything. So trust God in the area of your finances and your career and everything else that you have. So great point, Kellen. Okay, so let's move on to our next slide, and we'll have a few more minutes to go. I think there was one before that, Kellen.
Hey, Mom. Can you check the phone?
Oh, my. Oh, I'm sorry. Oh, sorry about that.
That happens. It's okay.
It's my home phone. I just take it off thinking just in case someone calls, it won't ring. But then
Oh, yeah.
I have my earpiece in and I didn't realize it was going. Sorry about that. Thank you so much, Francine. Really appreciate it. So our next slide.
Sorry, the screen is blank.
Oh, that's interesting. Okay. What was on that slide is the journey continues. And what I wanted to talk about is the biblical worldview versus the regular worldview, and just understanding that there is a big difference. And again, just allowing God to work through that and work through you, that will make a big difference. So as we journey on the map, the key is to get to true financial freedom. That's where we're looking to get to, and not retirement. It's retirement in the secular world, but it's really getting to true financial freedom, where we can say we are here to free to serve God and to allow God to fulfill his purpose in our life, not our purpose, but God's purpose in our life. Jeremiah 29:11 says, "For I know the plans I have for you, declares the Lord, plans to prosper you and not to harm you, plans to give you hope and a future." It is really God who's going to direct our path and order our steps. So I just want to encourage you today to let you know that the biblical principles are right. They're always right. They're always relevant, and they're always true. And because of that, we can act with confidence, we can act with consistency, and we can act with credibility. And my challenge to you today, as I briefly share with you, and I know it's really, it's like fire hose today, is that you pray and see God's help. I would encourage you, print that map, see where you are on that map. Don't get discouraged if you're way at the bottom, and just work towards that and allow God to help you, seek God's help. Make a plan, because we have to plan. We can't just go ordinarily we have to plan. If we don't plan, it's not going to happen. And when we plan, we need to stick to it. And we need to set our priorities and follow through with what we're doing. And will it be easy? It may not be. But as we persevere, God will just work through this. So what we always have what we call the 10-10-80 plan. And as it relates to how do we manage our finances? And the 10-10-80 is you give 10%, and yeah, we may be saying, but I don't have anything, I'm broke. Am I going to give 10%? Well, if you can't give 10%, you start where you can and allow God to work in your heart. But it's the 10-10-80, give 10, save 10, and live on 80%. And I think it was Larry Burkett who was the founder of Crown Financial Ministries, had said that if you live on the 10-10-80 plan, you will never go broke. And because you will always be saving, you'll always be giving, and then you form your lifestyle around 80% of your income. And
I've heard it said, Yvonne, I've heard it said that you take that off the top, that you pay that first, you pay yourself first, so to speak, with saving, and you pay God first, first things out of your paycheck. Would you agree with that?
I pay God first instead of myself first.
Okay. Very good.
And sometimes it's hard, it's like, okay, but if you do that, the key is to trust God, because He will come through for you. So you pay the 10% first to God and allow Him to work through that. You save 10% and you live on 80% of your income. That's, and I can tell you, it's a good formula to follow. You'll never get broke when you do that, and allow God to work through. Because when you give the 10, and many times we said we can't, because when we look at our bills, when we look at everything else, but I can encourage you, just trust God. Because what is our 20 is God 200. So you just never know. But and God needs our heart. He doesn't need our money. So it's not about the giving the 10%, so I'm gonna give you 10, God, and you're gonna bless me, right? It's really, God needs our heart. And when our heart is there, He will work through that. So that's the whole thing. So it's not
and the question has come up too. Is that 10% off your gross income, or is that your take home, actually what you take away? I mean, these are probably controversial questions, but you have the question came up in the chat about that. What do you think?
I always get that question.
Do you?
And here's my answer. I'm going to answer that question with a question. How do we want to be blessed? On our 10% gross or a 10% net?
Nice.
So again, there's a whole lot of controversial issues around that. And people say, I can't give 10 because look at what it looks like. You're not seeing what I'm seeing. And I'm like, yeah, I may not be seeing it, but God is seeing it. So I'm just answering the question with a question. Think about how you want to be blessed.
I remember somebody else who answered questions with questions, it seems to me. So that's good.
And when we do, and the key is to just begin to trust God in every single area of our lives, and which includes our finances, because many times we say, God, I trust you in my health, I trust you in my family. But when it comes to the finances, we said, we got to take care of this, God. And sometimes when He blesses us with a little bit of education, we just think we can do all the planning ourselves, but just allow God to work in our lives. And remember, it's not how much we earn that makes a difference. It's really how much we spend. Many times we spend more than we earn, and that's what will get us into trouble. And I normally do a whole session on debt. So I'm just picking pieces right now that I think is very relevant, especially as we're going through this time.
Yeah, that's a good point. At the end of the day, everyone may have noticed in our schedule, we have a special breakout opportunity for anyone who would like to address the question of debt. Lindsay Stringer will be addressing that particularly right at the end of the day. So a lot more detail there. Thanks.
Next slide, Terry. Okay. So the question is, where do we go from here? And the answer to that is, it's your decision. It can be your way, or it can be God's way. Your financial destination future will be determined by the choice you make. And my prayer is that we choose God's way. And that's my prayer and that's my hope. If we commit to a journey of managing our finances God's way and make choices that results from applying the principles that we discussed briefly today, we will see a difference in our finances and in our lives. I truly believe that. These are not just words, but I believe that from my heart. And you can find, there are ton loads of resources all over that you can find on finances. They have, the ministry, we do have coaches that work along with people, and all the materials are there for free. We do have small group studies that we work with in churches. So there are ton loads of materials that are out there that talks about the biblical principles of how we manage our money. So as we apply these principles in our lives, and I know, again, it was briefly, the ultimate goal is Proverbs 22:7, Proverbs 10:22, sorry. It says, it's the blessing of the Lord that makes rich, and he adds no sorrow to it. It's the blessing of the Lord that makes rich, and he adds no sorrow to it. So we don't have to do it on our own. Let's allow God to help us to work through that. And again, I'm going to remind you about the notes, the ACT. And I'm hoping that you'll put that into practice. I can tell it helps me a great deal. And don't just learn it, but in this day and age, we just need to pass what we have learned on to others so that they in turn can do the same. And that's what we call the multiplication effect, that each one teach one. That you don't have to be trained in finance. I am not a financial planner. I should have said that up front. So I just wanted you to know my passion when I was to be a partner, God used that passion and now using it for ministry. So so you don't have to be, these are just talking about the principles of the Bible and not getting into, I don't get into investments. I don't get into all that. I send the people when they ask those questions to the professionals. But what I do speak about is how we manage our finances based on what God says. You know, it was really short, but I encourage you to, if you're not on your journey to true financial freedom as yet, now is the time to begin. And you're going to say, well, Yvonne, the things are so hard right now, but just start with the little. And as you start with the little, God will bless you and it will make a lot. So I just want you to trust God in all your areas of your finances. Remember the ACT. And I just want to say thank you so much for listening today. Thank you for interacting. It has just been a pleasure to serve you as usual. Love the Boston fellas. Love to hang out. I'm so sorry we can't be together today, but this has been great. So thank you, Kelly, for inviting me again to do this, and I just look forward to continue doing it. I think I'm on Kelly's staff for free. I think thank you all. I really appreciate it.
It's been a partnership that has been super fruitful, Yvonne, terrific. So everyone, we're even ahead of schedule right now. Michelle, maybe you can unmute, or excuse me, unshare the screen. This is who Yvonne Mito is, Executive Director of Compass New England, and also on John Maxwell's team, and even his advisory council. We're going to go to a 10-minute break as of right now. So set a timer or whatever you need to do. We're going to we're going to have a 10-minute break. And again, I'd like to encourage you not to just check your email or look at other things, but really to take a break away from screens, get a cup of coffee, whatever else, and we will be back in 10 minutes. Thanks so much.
Thank you, everyone.
Welcome back, everyone. Hope you were able to grab a cup of coffee or tea or whatever your beverage is. And do think about your takeaways from today. I'm going to have at the end of the time we'll go over that ACT again, your action points and changes you want to make, and then how you want to pass it on, teach other people. But the main thing that we'd like you to do is to think about those big takeaways that you have from today, things that you want to apply, and then we'll actually ask you to let us know, particularly those that are in the Boston Fellows Program proper. We would love to have those in mind, and all of us hold each other accountable for that. But even those who are guests today, and we're really glad to have you here, it would be good to know your the things that you take away from the time, and things that are most meaningful for you to do and to apply in your lives. And next we have Francine Stafford, who is the creator of foreverfran.com, and through that blog she strives to educate, inspire, and motivate millennials about family, parenting, and personal finances. She's a safety and environmental manager at McFarland Clinic and a member of the John Maxwell team also. Francine, you've just recently moved back. I think you're muted at this point, but you've just moved back from Iowa, where I spent some of my childhood, and you're now on the East Coast as well. And I should mention, this is all a family affair. People may not know, but you are Yvonne's daughter. And so really, really glad to have you with us this morning.
It's nice to be here as well. Can everybody hear me okay?
Yeah, I think so. I think so. So you learned this from an early age, a lot of these principles that you're putting in practice with your mom.
Yeah, so I mean, I've watched her live it, and now, as an adult, I've sort of had a passion for it since I was younger as well. In high school, I taught some classes to some of my classmates about budgeting and just about saving money and things like that. So it's also been a passion of mine as well.
Beautiful. Well, you're going to talk to us this morning a little bit about some of the apps that we can use, some of the tools we can use, and then how we can apply that some of these same ideas that we've been looking at, specifically to budgeting, making a budget, and that kind of thing. Yeah. So take it away. Thanks so much for being with us this morning.
You're welcome. All right, I'm going to go ahead and share my screen. All right, can you guys see that?
Yeah, we can see that. Thanks.
Let's see. All right, so what are you guys seeing right now? I just want to make sure I'm sharing the right screen.
You're a beautiful family. I see. Those are obviously. I think you said in something that you have three girls, and those are they. And what's your husband's name? What's his name?
Jermaine. So I always like to start talking about personal finance with a little bit about me, because finance and personal finance is very personal. So this is my nuclear family. I've got three girls, Abigail, Caroline, and Isabel. And then I've got a bonus child, my stepson, Troy, and then my husband, Jermaine. So a little bit about us. I'm from Connecticut, and my husband, Jermaine, is from Texas. So, and right now we live in New Jersey. We were in Iowa for a little while, but now we're in New Jersey. So we'll go ahead and get started. So the first thing I want you guys to do is we're going to make it a little interactive. So if you're not on your phone, if you could grab your cell phone, and I'd like you to text Francine Staff 806 to the number 22333. And the reason why you're doing that is because in the during the course of the presentation, there are some interactive tools to get your feedback real time. So that's sort of why I'm having you do that. So we'll get started with that. And then when it shows up on the screen, you'll see it. and then you'll type your responses in and we'll be able to see that real time. Okay. So first we'll start to talk a little bit about budgeting. So a budget, everyone's like, what's a budget? It seems so daunting, but really a budget is nothing more than the activity of balancing your income versus your expenses. So now when we're talking income, this can be anything like most frequently we think about our paycheck. This could be tips, it could be interest from savings accounts, or it can be dividends if you have stocks or bonds or anything, any sort of investment accounts. And then when we're thinking expenses, some expenses that we think about, mortgage, rent, food or entertainment, any utilities, any loans, if you drive a car, gas, things like that. And so when we talk about expenses, we want to think about our expenses in two categories. So the first is fixed expenses. And so fixed expenses are things that are the same amount every month. So that'll be something like your rent, or if you have student loans, your student loan payments, or if you have a car payment, those things are the same amount every month. So those would be considered fixed expenses. And then we have variable expenses. So variable expenses are things that can vary from month to month. So that would be like gas for your vehicle. It would be your car maintenance. It could be food. So if your grocery budget for the month can vary depending on if there are certain holidays, if you're having a big meal with family and friends. So that can fluctuate. So that's what we're looking at when we're talking about fixed expenses. So now when you're doing your budget, you essentially are going to list all of your income and all of your expenses. Here we have an example of just additional expenses that you might have. And when you're doing, when you're coming up with your budget, you really want to think of everything. So you're looking at any credit card payments, any gym memberships, any subscriptions. Now, notoriously, we sign up for things, forget, and then it's on this monthly reoccurring charge that you never really think about. But it's like, oh yeah, I pay $2.99 a month for my iCloud storage. You want to make sure that you're getting all of those expenses and documenting them. And
Is
then
the easiest way, Francine, just to kind of go back over your past bills, or how? I suppose that might be one way to do it, is just to make sure you've got everything.
Mm-hmm. And we'll talk about how we can track that in a little bit too. And so my mom talked about the 10-10-80 plan, but here I'll talk about it again. So 10% is going to be for giving. You always want to do your first 10% as your tithe. The second 10%, again, is saving. So making sure you're putting that away for a rainy day. And then the 80% is where you want all of your expenses to fall into. So if you are looking at all of your expenses and your expenses are more than your income coming in, then you really need to reevaluate either A, you need to increase your income, or B, you need to adjust your expenses. So that might be maybe cutting Netflix or going out to eat less frequently. And again, personal finance is very personal. So you decide what is the most important and what those expenses need to be. But you want to make sure that all of those expenses fit within that 80%.
So Francine, I don't cut my tithe?
Huh?
I shouldn't cut my tithe?
No, you should.
Oh, okay. Just checking.
So we're going to start with our first poll. And my first question for you is, how many online accounts do you have? So this would include checking your credit cards, online banking, or any loans. So when you're going to text either A, B, or C to that phone number that we have, and we'll see what that looks like for everyone.
So this is your checking account, or just would it only be, say, credit cards, that kind of thing?
This will be your checking account too. So if you're logging in to do your online banking, if you're logging in to check your credit card, if you have a store card, some of us have a Target credit card or a Victoria's Secret card, any of those things would be counted.
Amazon?
Amazon.
Mm-hmm.
Well, an Amazon card or an Amazon account.
Just an account, say.
Nah, well, You wouldn't include the Amazon account because you
Okay.
probably aren't paying with that. You have some sort of payment option on your
So it's a
email.
payment, a main means of payment. Okay.
Now, can
Okay.
you guys see the numbers moving? I just want to make sure.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. So it looks like the vast majority of us, myself included, have 5 or more accounts that we're checking on, for whether it's a credit card, whether we're checking our loan statements, whether we're checking our online banking. And so when you're putting together a budget, that's a lot to keep track of, right? So one of the tools that I like to use for budgeting, see if I can get to it, is mint.com. So Mint is both a mobile app and a website. And so through Mint, you're able to look at all of your accounts. So like I said, most of us have 5 or more accounts. And so you can link these accounts to Mint, and it'll pull in all of your spending, all of your income, and help you to create a budget that works for you. So if you look on the screen here, you can see it lists all your different accounts. So it'll tell you the amount of cash that you have available based on your checking and your savings accounts. It'll tell you what your credit card debt might be, depending on the cards that you link to this account, and then any investments that you have as well. There's also an option, go to the next slide, for putting in your budget. So once you look at all of your expenses, all of your where you spend your money, you can create categories, and then you can put that into Mint. So for example, in this image, there's a shopping budget of $1,260, and it'll show you during that month how close you are to staying within that number, or if you go over that number.
And this is a free app, but they do kind of use your information for their own marketing purposes, I think. Is that
Yeah,
is that
so
correct? Yeah.
So it is a free app, but they do use your information to potentially target ads. So it could be, they'll say, hey, you have a credit, oh, they also give you your credit score, but they'll say, hey, you have a credit score of 780, you might qualify for this card. Or they also give you the opportunity to file your taxes through Mint, if that's something that you want to do. So some of the reasons why I personally love Mint, I use Mint myself, is because it's secure. There are different types of authentication that you need to do. You're able to aggregate the financial data from your various accounts. It helps you to budget and to set goals. So you can say, hey, I want to purchase the iPhone 12, which is, $1,000. So I can put aside $200 each month or $100 each month, and you can track where you are on your savings goals. You have the option to insert bill reminders. So you can say every 15th of each month, I need to pay my my student loan, and it'll send you an email to ping you to say, hey, did you pay your student loan? Today your student loan is due. It helps you to calculate your net worth, which basically is just looking at all of your assets or all of the positive income things that you have versus your liabilities or your expenses. So whether that's credit cards or loans, and it helps you to calculate that number. It provides credit tracking for you as well to get an idea of where your credit score is. And the best part, I think, is that it's free. So I really enjoy.
Free is good.
Yeah, I really enjoy Mint, and I think it's a great tool for helping to build your budget and to track your finances that way. So the next question I have for you guys is, how do you give? So you can text so whether it's I give through work, I give online, I give offering at church, I hand money to people on the street. How do you guys give? Oh, we have a couple coming in.
So Francine, is this is primarily the where you give or how you give?
Both. How?
Okay.
Mostly how, but if where you give is also a good way to respond. So far we've got going through charities, GoFundMe, electronically. Ooh, we're getting lots of responses. Oh, and a little bit about this image that you're seeing. The more often that we're getting that response, the larger the text will be. So based on this image here, a lot of people are giving at church. Some people are giving gifts, charities. Some people are doing GoFundMe, paying online, tithe. So this is an idea of how we're giving our money. So with the 10-10-80 plan, of course, the first 10% is giving. So I personally give to my church online through our online website. And a lot of churches actually give you this option, particularly with the pandemic, where folks aren't actually going into the church and people aren't necessarily handling money as frequently. This is a great option to continue to tithe while you may not physically be at the church. And so typically they'll give you the option of how you want to give. So you can do it once for a one-time gift. You can do it monthly, depending on how you get paid, or you can do it weekly, bi-weekly, or based on your income and how your income works. So for me, I think the easiest way to do this is to automate it. If you know that you are getting paid on the 1st and the 15th of every month, then you can set it up to give your tithe, that first 10%, automatically on the 1st and the 16th as you get paid. Now, if you are someone who is an hourly worker or whose income fluctuates, then you may not want to do it that way. You may want to do to go in and activate your giving manually so that you're making sure that that number is accurate for you. Another way to give is through Amazon Smile. I am on Amazon all the time. And a great way to give back is while you're already shopping within your 80%, within your budget, you can attach your Amazon account to a particular charity or a cause. So my cause is Compass New England. This is an old picture, but it's from 2018, and it'll tell you how much it gives a portion of your purchase to the charity of your choice. So it's a great way to give back while you're doing some spending, again, within your budget.
And it doesn't cost anything. There's no extra money. It's actually Amazon that's giving to that. It's sort of on a basis of how much you spend.
Yep. So it's a great benefit if you're already shopping. And oops, I got the wrong date there, but as the holidays are coming around, Giving Tuesday is always the Tuesday following Cyber Monday and Black Friday. A lot of times organizations will have matching days. So you're able to give your gift during that time, and a lot of organizations will match that gift during that time. Something to remember is if your job offers charitable contribution matching, that's a great thing to take advantage of. My company recently introduced that. And so I was able to donate to my charity of choice, and my company actually matched that dollar for dollar. So it helps to make your gift go just a little bit further. So if you have that opportunity, it's a great thing to take advantage of.
Organizations differ on what they will actually match and what they won't. Some of them will do, say, churches and things. Others, it has to be
really
something specific to
Yeah.
their list.
Yeah, it's organization specific. So here's a fun question. How many of you are on a mobile device, a payment plan for your mobile device?
Meaning that you're making monthly payments towards paying off the actual apparatus itself.
Yep. So most frequently, this will be through your cell phone company. I think you can also do it through Apple, but All right. So this is actually a pretty interesting split. I think this is the first time I've seen that so many people are not on a payment plan. But typically what we see is that folks will get a brand new phone. So here we have the iPhone 12. It's like, I think the iPhone 12 Max is like $1,200. And the companies will sort of entice you by saying, hey, you only have to pay $30.16 for the next, 2 to 3 years. And so I just wanted to show you guys really quickly. This is based on a $1,000 phone, but it shows you the breakdown of how you pay each month for a phone. And so the same idea translates to savings, right? So you want to make sure that you are saving automatically and continuously, because that amount will grow over time. So I wanted to present just a couple of options for high yield savings accounts. And so one of the reasons why I like high yield savings accounts is because A, you earn a little bit more interest. B, it's a little bit set aside from your normal accounts. So with the online savings accounts, it typically takes 3 days to transfer money. So it makes you sort of rethink whether or not you actually need to withdraw that money, because you're like, hey, it's going to take 3 days to get here. Do I absolutely need to pull this money, or am I just being impulsive because I want to purchase something? So I really encourage folks to have a high yield savings account, because it'll help you earn some extra money, and B, it sort of sets your savings aside. It's not directly linked to your savings account. Your checking account, where you can transfer money super easily.
So this is these are institutions apart from a bank that can actually give you a higher percentage than you're likely to get at your bank.
Well, they're typically with banks. So
Oh, I see.
So for example, I personally have Marcus. Marcus is a online savings account through Goldman Sachs. The difference is I can't go into a bank, a brick and mortar bank, and deposit money that way. Everything's done online. And so because it's all electronic, they offer a higher yield. So right now, I think the yield right now is about 0.5%, which isn't the best, but it's much more than a regular savings account, which might be 0.01%. All right, so it gives you a little bit more, and again, it sets it apart. There are also some apps outside of these mobile banking institutions that will analyze your spending. So you would attach it to your checking account. It analyzes your spending and then automatically will transfer a small amount based on your spending. So it might look at your account and say, hey, you get paid every month on the 15th. We're going to transfer $2 every time you get paid to this savings account. Or it might say, hey, every month on the 20th, you spend $1.67 on coffee. So we'll send the balance up to $2 into this savings account. And so it helps you to transfer small amounts into a savings where you don't really notice it. And so it very quickly adds up. You're like, hey, wait a minute, how did I save $200 this month? I didn't even know I could do that. And so these apps are great for analyzing your spending and helping you to save in small increments. We're not going to talk a lot about investing, but these are some options for automating your investing and to help you put money into investments, and also to help you select investments. So you'll do surveys, and based on your responses to questions as it pertains to your age and risk, these applications will help you to pick the right investments for you and for that time. So don't worry, I'll send links to all of these at the end because I'm sort of throwing a lot of information at you. But yeah, so these are several applications for investment.
And the question came up a little bit earlier, Francine, about tracking IRAs and that kind of thing. Or do Do these apps, do these apps and accounts, can they take IRAs with that kind of long-term planning and track them, or is that a separate thing?
Yep. So for these 3 apps here, you can use them for IRAs, so not 401ks, but IRAs and Roth IRAs, or just a regular investment account for regular stocks and bonds or ETFs, things like that.
Cool.
So here's a question for you. So we're going to talk about the last category, so the 80%, but we'll talk about spending. So where do you plan to shop for the holidays? Is it going to be mostly online, mostly in stores, or do you not plan on shopping because you're Scrooge McDuck? We've got a couple Scrooges out here, huh?
I think somebody's pulling her leg here. I'm kind of amazed to see how many people want to shop in stores given present circumstances.
All right. So we've got a picture of Scrooge McDuck. And for all my online shoppers, I have a couple apps for you for practical application. So first, we'll talk about Rakuten. So this is one of my favorite websites. So anytime that I'm going to shop online, I check Rakuten first. So basically, you'll go in and you'll look at all of the stores that they have available. And then depending on the time, so sometimes, like for example, they have double cashback days. So here we have Macy's and Sephora, where the cashback is a little bit higher than it typically is. Or if you look at Ulta, you'll get 10% cash back on anything that you spend on Ulta that particular day. So I use this occasionally when I shop. And if you look at the top right-hand corner, you can see that I've gotten $250 cash back over the time that I've been shopping. Now, this is not to say that you should buy more because you're going to get some back, but it is a helpful way if you're going to spend, again, within your budget to get some cash back. And you can usually, typically what I'll do is I'll throw that right into savings. I'll say, hey, this is what I was going to spend anyway. Anything I get back will go into my savings account.
So you could either start there, or else if you find something online, go check there and see if there's a connection.
Yep.
Yeah.
And then so the way that you get paid is that they can send it to you. Typically it's every 3 months. And you'll either get a check sent to your house or cash back through PayPal. For my in-store shoppers, one of my favorite apps is Ibotta. And so how it works, I'll show you a little bit on in a couple more slides, but basically you select the offers that you're interested in, you go shopping, and then when you're done, you take a photo of your receipt, and then they'll give you cash back. So they work with different companies and use it as advertising to sort of entice you to purchase a product or to try a product to increase their sales. So here, this typically is in like the grocery store or Walmart or Target. And so you'll see something like, Perfect Kids cashback offer. So those are bars that my kids like to eat. They're, peanut butter and chocolate. And so what you'll do is you'll purchase that item, and then you'll take a picture of the receipt like you have down here. And so at the end of whatever, you need a minimum of $20 to cash out. But at the end of whatever period you'd like, you can either redeem your cash back for a direct payment through PayPal, or you can do it for digital rewards cards. So whether it's an Amazon gift card or a gift card to AutoZone, anything like that, you can do that, or you can direct deposit it into your bank account as well. So I have been a member of Ibotta since 2012. And you can see in the top right-hand corner that I've gotten over $1,100 cash back on items that I typically would buy anyway. So things like pasta, things like diapers. And so the offers sort of rotate depending on advertising and things like that. So that's a little bit about Ibotta, and it's one of my favorite apps. So these are just a number of other applications that you can use for reimbursement. There's Fetch Rewards, which essentially, again, is a receipt reimbursement. Same thing with Checkout 51. Those are both more based on grocery shopping. And then there's Drop and Dosh. Particularly with Dosh, what you're doing is you're linking a credit card. This one's probably the easiest one to do because it is tied to your credit card or your debit card. And when you spend at one of their applicable stores, it will automatically give you that cash back. So for example, my husband and I recently purchased Dell monitors because we've been working from home quite a bit. And so after purchasing those cards, I got a ping or I got an email saying, hey, you got $15 cash back from Staples for buying these Dell monitors. And it was just because that card was already linked. It wasn't something that I thought about, but now we got $15 cash back. So it's a great way if you're not one of those people who are constantly tracking or want to scan receipts. It's a great way to get cash back for things that you're doing anyway. All right, and so this is going to be my last slide, but this is one of my favorites. Scanning different products in store is a great way to save money as well. So a lot of stores have their own apps. My favorite apps right now are the Target app. How many of you guys have the Target app? Anyone? So my favorite apps are the Target app, as well as our grocery store here in Jersey is Acme. So Acme has their own app. And so within the apps, they have a bunch of different types of offers. So they might have manufacturer coupons like you see on the right-hand side from Acme. So these are typically the same coupons that you used to get in your Sunday newspaper, but now they're all digital. So what you can do is both of these apps have a scanning feature. So say I want to buy a bottle of water. I can hold my app to the barcode. It'll scan the barcode and tell me if there are any coupons or offers like buy one, get one free, or 15% off this particular product. And it'll load it right to my app and I can use it right at checkout. So if I'm going to buy, say, Tide, I can scan it on my app. And then when I get to the register, typically you'll put your phone number in and it'll give you that discount without having to click coupons and all the things that we used to do in the past. So I know I sort of blazed through that pretty quickly, but does anyone have any questions on anything I've gone over? Again, I will share the links to all of these various apps at the end of our day today, so that if you want to check it out or try it, you can feel free to do that as well.
And we're also recording this today. Everyone has probably noticed, so we'll make the recording available to everyone who's joined us today, just in case you want to review the video. Yeah, put your questions in the chat room if you have them for Francine. Francine, I'm struck with the level of intentionality here. This is something that you've really it's a way of life for you. It's a constant habit, looks like.
And if you ask my mom, anytime my mom goes to shop or something, she'll call me and be like, hey, do you have any discounts on that? Or hey, where should I buy this from? Should I buy it from, a lot of times there's the same product at multiple stores. So it's like, well, should I buy this at Target or should I go to Walmart or should I go to Dell? Should I go to the manufacturer directly? And so for me, it's fun to say like, well, what's the most economical way to purchase this? And it might be because I'm an engineer. I'm an engineer. So I like to problem solve and do that kind of thing. So
The questions just come in, Francine. What about savings for services like haircuts, nails, massages, that kind of service-oriented purchase?
So there are a bunch of different ways that you can do your savings. Some people for particular items will use like an envelope system. So you can say, okay, I know that I'm gonna get my haircut every, I don't know, 6 weeks, right? Or 6 to 8 weeks. So from each paycheck, I'm gonna take $20 and put it in an envelope so that I have it ready. What
An
other
online envelope, sort of a virtual envelope.
Yep, you can do it, and so you can do a physical envelope, or you can do a virtual envelope. And so a lot of banks, including, so I personally have PNC Bank, which allows you to have multiple savings accounts, and so you can name them and say, this is my savings account for a down payment on a house. This is my savings account for Christmas. Christmas is a great thing to save for throughout the year, so that when you get to Christmas, you're like, hey, I've got $500. I'm only spending $500 for Christmas. And here's my debit card that has the $500 on it. And this is what I'm using to spend for Christmas.
So apps like Mint and et cetera, they allowed you to set up these sort of virtual envelopes, and then they'll tell you if you go beyond that amount. I mean, how do you actually stay within your budget using these apps? I mean, it's easy to set these up, but then how do you kind of make sure that you're actually sticking with them?
So with Mint particularly, you can set a limit to say, hey, when you get, well, I shouldn't say a limit. It gives you a notification. So you can say, when I get to 3/4 of my budget, I want an email to come and say, hey, you're getting awfully close to this budget limit.
Yeah.
The only qualm I have with Mint is that you get the notification after, right? So if your budget is $100 and you spend $200 the first day, it's going to send you a notification, but you've already spent that.
It's too late. Yeah.
Yeah. So that's.
Are there others that you like better for that, or?
I haven't found one that I really like.
But you can actually set it up so that it notifies you if you're coming close to.
Yep.
So yeah.
You can set it to notify you in advance, and then it will notify you after the fact as well.
Okay, cool. And then the question came in, that was about how to set a budget for services like haircuts, et cetera. Are there websites that give you cash back on those kind of services as well, that you know of?
In terms of, not for services, a lot of individual companies, like, so my guilty pleasure is going to get my nails done. And my particular nail salon has a reward system, in the sense that if you do 3 visits, you might get your 4th one free. So there are things like that. Or if you have a credit card and you're using it responsibly, paying it at the end of the month, all that sort of thing, paying in full, I should say, at the end of the month. A lot of these credit cards will have cashback rewards. So
cool.
I have a credit card that will give me 1.5% of anything that I spend. So as long as I'm staying within my budget, using my credit card and paying it in full at the end of the month, I get that cash back that we can save as well.
You might want to unshare your screen there, Francine, just so we see you directly. So yeah, what do you think how does this work with what do you think of like cashback credit cards, those kinds of things? I mean, they typically have huge percentages if you don't pay it off. What do you think about those?
So I very much like cashback rewards credit cards. However, the caveat is you need to be budgeting and staying within your budget consistently before you get these cards. So I've been doing this for a very long time. I'm not that old, but
you can start early.
But once you get the hang of sticking to your budget, you need to pay those credit card bills in full every month. So you make sure that my budget for food is $200. Once you get to that $200, you're not using that card for that anymore. And then, so the benefit of it is that you're using the money that you already have because you're paying it in full, but then you get a little bit of cash back at the end of the month. So it's very, it's a slippery slope because you don't want to spend more because you're going to get cash back. You never want to do that because, like you said, Kelly, the interest rates and the fees are typically much higher because they're trying to account for the people who are getting those rewards.
Right.
So you want to make sure that you're very careful with those reward cards. But once you get the hang of it, it's definitely a benefit. It's definitely a benefit that you should take advantage of once you're at that point.
Do you ever overpay credit cards? I mean, you can actually pay more any money in. Is that ever something that you would do? Not really.
Typically, no.
Yeah.
Just because, for example, some of my cards, it'll say this is your current balance, and if you try to pay more than that, it won't let you.
Oh.
On some of my cards. But what a lot of people will do, and also, is that they will. So say I purchase my computer monitors. The closing date might not be until the end of the month, but because I want to make sure that I'm not carrying a balance and I have the cash, I might pay, I buy this on Wednesday, I might go in and pay my card on Friday so that my card is always at, a low level. Because I have that cash there, I have the availability to do that.
To pay them earlier even than necessary. Yeah. What do you think about Groupon? The question came in. Is Groupon something you use? You mentioned some of these other apps, or
yeah, I love Groupon. Particularly if there's events in your city, not right now with COVID, or if there's something that you want to do anyway. So typically, I use Groupon the most when I go on vacation. There might be a museum that I want to see. There might be an event happening in the city, and you can of course buy those tickets at the vendor's website. But Groupon will typically give you a discount for the same thing. The only thing with Groupon is that it's rotating. So the deal you want might not be there, but it's a great thing to do that if you're, you're in a new place or you want to try something new, to give you a discount on that. So it's definitely a good tool to use if there's something available that you want to do.
Cool. So just to summarize, can you would start with sort of nailing all your expenses, trying to list all of your expenses, and then you would establish a budget and put that in Mint. I think most of the people zooming in today would use that. I think that's more typical to use electronic sources like that. Set up budgets within Mint that for sort of broad sorts of categories, and then you do have to tweak sometimes expenses because the Mint doesn't necessarily know which category it falls into. It's mislabeled some things in when I use it, for example, when I spend and it's connected to Mint, sometimes it doesn't allocate it to the right sort of category. Anything else then that you want to say? You mentioned you went through a bunch of different apps, but as a summary, does that capture it?
Yeah, so that's a good summary. So essentially, you want to identify all of your sources of income and all of your expenses, and then you'll make sure that your expenses do not exceed your income. If you do find that, because sometimes that happens, you're like, how does that work, right? So that means you're probably overspending somewhere. You want to go through and make sure that your income matches your expenses, and then you can plug it into Mint, or there are a lot of other applications as well. My husband and I actually sometimes when we're putting our budget together, we'll use Google Sheets. So it's just a spreadsheet where he can go in and I can go in and we can make adjustments as needed. And then we'll put it into Mint to track it, to make sure that we're sticking to it. And then once you have that budget, you know what your spending categories are and how much you're allocated to those categories, then you can use some of the tools that I provided today to sort of help you save additional money while staying within your budget.
Cool. The questions come in. What do you think of zero-based budget? Thoughts on a zero-based budget? I don't even know what that means, but maybe you do.
Yeah. So a zero-based budget is basically when you look at all of your income and you're allocating every dollar to something. So zero-based budgeting is saying, okay, if I make $1,000 a month, for example, all of my expenses might be taken care of prior to hitting that $1,000 limit. And so to get to zero-based budgeting, what you're going to do is you're going to allocate the remainder of that money somewhere. So it could be to spending, it could be to charitable giving, it can be to saving, but it's making sure that every dollar has a home.
Great. Well, I think that covers the questions that have come in. Francine, thank you so much. This is amazing. Would love to have you stick around. We're actually, our next session is going to be on investing. I guess from that world that spend all their time thinking about that kind of thing. And then we'll end up with a Q&A at the very end if people want to self-select into that. But thank you so much. That was terrific. Really, really helpful. So appreciate it. Everybody, we're ahead of schedule. We're doing very well. And so what we're going to do is to take our 10-minute break again right now. We'll come back in precisely 10 minutes to hear from Ted Hughes and Jason Meyer on socially responsible and Christian investing. But we'd like to take our 10-minute break right now. Again, my advice is not to check social media or apps or emails or anything else online, but to take a break and get something to drink, do whatever else you need to do. And then 10 minutes from now, we'll pick up with our last plenary session. Thanks so much.
Hi, Baron.
Hi, Alison. How are you?
I'm doing well. Are you guys on a break?
Yeah, it's a break. Yeah, I think it's like a 10-minute break. So,
Okay.
so I don't really know when they started because I had to go outside for a little. I just came back to find out it's a break.
Oh, yeah. Okay. Maybe I'll go get myself a cup of tea and then come back.
Yeah, I think you can come back in 5 minutes.
Yeah,
maybe
about 5 minutes
eight
left.
and close.
Yeah, there's about 5 minutes left. Good to see you, Allison.
Oh, hi.
Hi.
Yeah, good to see you. Or hear you. Okay. Yeah, thank you.
Hey, Ted. Good to see you. Thanks for introducing.
Hi, Jason. Nice to see you too. Happy to do it.
Doing very well. Where are you calling in from?
I'm in my office in Burlington.
Okay.
And where are you at home?
I am at home. Yeah, I was in Boston this week, but my home is in Louisville, Kentucky, so I'm back there this weekend.
Louisville, Kentucky. I had no idea.
Yeah, I'm one of the few remote workers for Eventide, so I'm in Boston often, but I don't live there.
I didn't know that either. Good morning, guys.
Hey, good to see you, Kelly.
Great to hear from you. Yeah, well, everyone, we're coming back together for our last plenary session. Have had tremendous insight from Yvonne on basic guidelines for biblically managing your finances. Then Francine has talked to us about apps and budgeting and using some tools to get us there. As we move to our final session, Ted Hughes is here to introduce our speaker. Ted is the founder and president of Cornerstone Financial Management, LLC. He's a certified financial planner and a certified Kingdom advisor. In addition to many professional memberships, Ted is a member of Kingdom Advisors. That group may be new to you. It's a group of Christian financial professionals that strive to integrate their faith in their work. Ted's company, Cornerstone, has as its mission in the world of financial services to provide fee-only financial counsel to individuals and families. In other words, people hire Cornerstone to give them independent and objective advice together with biblical wisdom in regard to managing or stewarding the financial resources that God has entrusted to them. Cornerstone does not sell financial products such as insurance or investment, and therefore they don't accept commissions for those financial products purchased by their clients. And this allows Cornerstone to act in the best interests of their clients at all times and minimize conflicts of interest. And you might want to research Cornerstone Financial Management. Their offices are in Burlington, Mass. Ted, thank you so much for being here and thereby satisfying compliance laws for us this morning by your very presence here with us. Big favor you're doing us. Would you please introduce our speaker?
Yes, thank you, Kelly. It's my privilege to introduce Jason Meyer from Eventide. Jason serves as managing partner and director of advocacy at Eventide, a Boston-based asset manager focused on investing that makes the world rejoice. In his role, he advocates for values-based investing rooted in a biblical worldview and Eventide's Business 360 investment philosophy. Eventide strives to honor God and serve its clients by investing in companies that create compelling value for the common good. And on a personal note, I want to say that I met Jason about 10 years ago at a Kingdom Advisors conference. And I clearly remember that meeting and conversation because of Jason's passion for faith-based investing that makes the world rejoice, but also his fantastic smile. So let's give a warm virtual welcome to Jason Meyer.
Well, thanks so much, Ted. And hey, everyone. It's good to be with you this morning and to share some thoughts with you about investing in general and faith-based investing specifically. So I have some slides that I'll use to teach you some concepts this morning. So let me share my screen. And if somebody could just give me a yes, I see that.
Yeah,
great.
It's there.
Perfect. All right. So when I was asked to share on this meeting, I was thinking about what would be helpful. And one of the things that I thought would be good is if I provided you just some practical wisdom for investing. So a good chunk of this presentation is just going to be classic investing principles that should serve you well when you're looking to start investing if you haven't already, or to fine tune your investment approach if you are already investing. And then the last part of my talk, I'll get into more detail specifically about this concept known as values-based investing, or as I call it, faith-based investing. There's lots of different terms on offer, but hopefully it'll make sense to you once I get to that part of the talk. So we're talking about timeless truths for investing. As Ted introduced, I'm Jason. I'm a managing partner of a company called Eventide. We're based in Boston. We're right down in the finance district on the harbor. Our specialty is values-based investing rooted in a biblical worldview. My day-to-day work is in an area we call advocacy, which sounds like a really vague job title, But basically what I do is I speak to audiences like I'm doing this morning and talking about the importance of bringing our faith and our values and our beliefs and our ethical commitments to our investment decision making. All right, so let's jump in. To set the stage, we all are very aware of what's happening in the world around us. We're still dealing with this pesky virus. I know we're all really sick of it. I was in Boston this week, and it's just eerie how quiet it is. And I was staying in a hotel. I think there was probably 10 people in the whole hotel, and we've all really kind of seen how this has affected our lives. And it's not just affected our lives; it's affected the economy. And because of that, the market has been a roller coaster this year. Back in March, it had a very scary sell-off where it actually fell at the fastest rate in history, if you can believe it or not. And not the deepest it's ever fallen, but the fastest rate of change when it was falling. And then it reached a bottom. And lo and behold, the market is at all-time high territory. And very few people would have predicted that, given the situation we're up against with coronavirus. And what I want to say is that there is always going to be something that causes us concern about investing. It can be, most recently it was the elections. Before coronavirus, it was a rocky relationship with China and trying to forge a trade deal there. And you can go back in history and it's just one thing after another, after another, after another. Every few months, there's some new crisis du jour that can shake us and can cause us to say, man, how do I think about investing? How do I make a plan in such an uncertain and unpredictable world? So what I want to do is talk to you about just some timeless truths for investing, things that have stood the test of time, that I think you can apply in your own life to invest with success. I've got 5 points to talk through this morning. I'll put them up on the screen and then we'll step through each one in turn. Number 1, keep your eye on the owner, not the dog. Number 2, restrain yourself. Number 3, employ a system that forces you to buy low. Number 4, remember the most powerful force in the universe. And number 5, invest in businesses, not stocks. All right, start with the first one here. Keep your eye on the owner, not the dog. What in the world, right? Well, this comes from one of my favorite quotes on investing, which was said by this person, Ralph Wenger, who was a successful investor. And he's got a very memorable illustration for how you can think about the market. And it goes like this. He likens the market to an excitable dog on a very long leash in New York City, darting randomly in every direction. The dog's owner is walking from Columbus Circle through Central Park to the Metropolitan Museum. At any one moment, there's no predicting which way this pooch is going to lurch. But in the long run, hey, it's heading northeast at an average speed of 3 miles per hour. What's astonishing is that almost all the market players, big and small, seem to have their eye on the dog and not on the owner. Hopefully this metaphor makes a little bit of sense. I'm going to make it real plain by showing you this chart. This is a chart of the stock market returns in the US going all the way back to day one, back in 1871. The blue line is the stock market. In the metaphor, that's the excitable dog on the long leash, darting randomly in every direction. No predicting which way this dog is going to lurch. Similarly, there is no predicting the direction of the stock market. As I said, no one would have predicted the market would be doing as well right now, given the current state of affairs with coronavirus. So that's the blue line, the excitable dog. The yellow line, what is that? Well, that's the best fit line for the data. It's a straight line. There's no curvature to it at all. In the metaphor, that's the owner that's walking the dog purposefully north and east at a steady rate, up and to the right. And you can see that in investing terms, that steady rate of progress has been a constant 6.6% growth. So what's the lesson here? Well, if you look at this chart, what do you see? The experience of investing has been up and to the right, right? And that's what we need to focus on when we invest. That's the reason we invest, right? Is because businesses have been a great way to grow our money over long stretches of time. And you shouldn't be bothered by the day-to-day, month-to-month, quarter-to-quarter, even year-to-year movements of the market, but rather you should fix your attention on that long-term trend line, the yellow line, that is the owner. So keep your eye on the owner. Really, really important lesson. All right, number 2, restrain yourself. This is going to be something that's a bit more personal. It has to do with controlling our pathological emotions, which can wreak havoc on our investment plan. Let me show you an article from the Wall Street Journal. You can see this is an older article, December 31, 2009. And every given decade, there is crowned some new king of mutual funds based on whichever fund puts up the best track record for a decade. And what this article is, you can see, is it's kind of the coronation ceremony for the king of mutual funds in the decade of the 2000s. So the best stock fund you could have picked in the 2000s was a fund called CGM Focus. They work out of the same building that I do. I see the manager on the elevator every now and then. And you can see that it posted an amazing return, 18% annually. If you're not used to thinking about investing, what that means is that the fund returned 18% per year for 10 years, just killed it. And you might think, wow, I bet the investors did really well in that fund. And you would be wrong. Check this out. Too bad investors weren't around to enjoy much of those gains. The typical CGM Focus investor lost 11% annually. They lost 11% per year for 10 years. Just abysmal. So the very best investment you could have picked in the 2000s was this one, 18% per year return. And somehow the investors in that very fund are managing to lose a lot of money every single year. How is this possible? Well, the article continues. These investor returns, also known as dollar-weighted returns, incorporate the effect of cash flowing in and out of the fund as shareholders buy and sell. Investor returns can be lower than mutual fund total returns because shareholders often buy a fund after it's had a strong run and they sell it as it hits the bottom. So here's what's going on. People want to invest. And so they go shopping for some investment and they want one with a good return. So they find this fund and they say, wow, look at the return on this thing. So they buy it after it's had a strong run of performance. So it's expensive. The fund will experience a downturn. All investments experience downturns, but they'll make a critical error. They'll give up. They'll say, oh, I bought a dog, get me out of here. So they cash out at the bottom. So they bought it high, rode it to the bottom, and then cashed out. Lo and behold, the fund will recover. It'll put on an impressive streak of performance. It will attract a new set of investors who will buy it at a high, who will then sell it at a low. This happens cyclically over and over and over and over. So even though the fund over a long stretch of time is doing really well, investors often don't experience it because of their emotional decision-making. Here is a book on psychology, actually a pretty well-known one these days. It's called Thinking Fast and Slow, written by a person named Daniel Kahneman. You can see below his name there. He won the Nobel Prize in economics. And if you haven't heard of it, that's okay. If you just get this quote, you'll basically get the gist of the book. The premise of this book is that it is easier to recognize other people's mistakes than it is to recognize your own mistakes. Isn't this true? It's so true in life. And it's true in investing. It's easy for us, for example, to look at that CGM Focus fund that I just talked about and to say, oh man, those fools, I would never do that. I would have stuck it out and enjoyed that full return. Would you have? It's very easy to recognize the mistakes of others and to not see these same tendencies resident within us. Let me show you this, looking at a much bigger group of investors. So this is a 20-year history of the returns of various investments. You can see 1996 through 2015. Over that period, the very best investment in terms of performance was a real estate investment that got 10.9% return per year. Next best was the S&P 500, which got 8.2% per year. This is a mix of stocks and bonds, a different mix of stocks and bonds. Bonds themselves, gold, this is emerging markets, the sale of homes, the performance of oil, the rate of inflation, and look at this, dead last is the average investor. And this is looking at the average investor across all mutual funds, so hundreds and hundreds of thousands of investors. The average investor underperforms every possible investment they could have made. It's certainly in this 20-year history. And you can see failing even to keep up with the rate of inflation, which means that in real terms, they lost money. Now, why? We have to reckon with why. And the answer to that is they're doing the same things that the CGM focused shareholders were doing. They're chasing a hot return. They're giving up in the hard times. They're doing this over and over and over, and it's ruining their long-term financial plan. We are our own worst enemy. I love this quote from Morgan Housel, who says that finance would be better if it was taught by the psychology and history departments at universities. Could not agree more. And one more quote on this point from a legend from way back. This is a person named Jesse Livermore, who says, when it comes to investing, the big money is not in the buying or the selling. It's in the sitting. So when you invest, here's what you need to do. Don't worry about, should I buy? Should I sell? What you should be focused on is, how do I sit here and do nothing? How do I just restrain myself from making any decision? That's the best way that you can succeed over long periods of time. All right. Number 3, employ a system that forces you to buy low. So we've talked about what you do not want to do. You don't want to buy something when it's expensive. You want to buy something at a low price and then sell it later at a high price. And there's actually a systematic way that you can do this when you invest. And so I want to talk about that. Using an experiment. Okay, so here's the experiment. I want you to imagine with me that we were dropped into history somewhere between the year 1920 and 1979. So we could land in 1920, we could land in 1935, 62, etc. And our task is that we have to invest in the US stock market for the next 40 years. Okay, I'm going to give you a choice of strategies here. Option 1, you can invest $100 a month. Option 2, you can save up $100 a month, keeping cash on the sidelines, and to try to buy the dips in the market. So whenever the market crashes, like it did in March, you buy it on the bottom. And I'm going to sweeten the deal on this second option. I'm going to grant you perfect knowledge of the future so that you'll be guaranteed to be able to do this successfully, buying the market at these absolute bottoms. And the question is, if you were dropped into history, had to invest for 40 years, which of these two options would you pick? Now, hopefully you'll agree with me that option 2 is really enticing, right? I mean, come on, you know the future and you just save up all your money and you buy the market when it crashes. Surely that would be a slam dunk. And hopefully you'll agree with me that option 1 looks very unlikely, just kind of plugging away monthly and not even paying attention to it. Well, someone actually conducted this experiment and they tried every possible combination. And this is what the result is. And I'll walk you through it. So when this blue line is above the horizontal dotted line, what that means is that the buy the dips strategy, that was option 2, that was the better choice to make. You can see that if we landed in the 20s, that was the better choice. And again, in the late 30s, early 40s, that was the better choice to make. When the blue line goes below the horizontal dotted line, what that means is that option 1 was the better choice to make. And you can see visually which one performs best in most of the time. It was option 1, the monthly investment strategy, 70% of the time, which pretty impressive, 70%. But I granted you perfect knowledge of the future with option 2, which of course none of us have. And so in practice, that second option is a lot harder than in this experiment, and we can get it wrong. And if we happen to get it wrong by just 2 months, whenever we're buying these dips, and you re-crunch the numbers on the problem, you can see that this monthly investment strategy outperforms 97% of the time, virtually the entire time. Now, how can this be? What is this magic? Well, it's called dollar cost averaging. It's very, very simple. It's the practice of investing a fixed amount of money at regular intervals over time. Perfect example is our $100 a month. And I'm going to show you on a chart why this works. But here's the explanation. When you do this, it's a strategy that will naturally buy more shares of any investment at low prices, which is what you want. And it will purchase less shares of an investment at high prices, which is what you want. Let me show it to you. So if you look at a real decade in investing, this is the period of the 2000s. You can see the market crashed twice, 1, 2. The second one here is the financial crisis. Tough decade, right? Many people call it the lost decade because the market lost money. Some people say it was the hardest decade in history to invest. So how did this dollar cost averaging monthly investment technique do? Well, here's that result. So on the top is what I just showed you. That's the stock market. On the bottom in the green, what we're looking at are the number of shares that you're purchasing through a monthly investment program. So I'll walk you through it. At the beginning of the decade, what do we see? The market is at a peak. Prices are high. So if you make your monthly investment purchase, you're only picking up, in this example, 3.5 shares. Well, the market begins to sell off. And so as your monthly purchases of a fixed dollar amount roll in, that fixed amount of money is going farther and farther and farther, and you're buying more and more and more shares. The market then begins to recover. Your money starts to not go as far. The market crashes. You start to buy more shares, so on and so forth. Hopefully you can see the way in which this is working. Now, I wonder if you look at this chart and you look at the blue line and the green line together, if you kind of just step back from the screen, what do you see? Do you notice something? Do you notice that this monthly investment technique is actually a buy the dips strategy in disguise? Do you see it? Do you see how, for example, when the market is at a bottom, you're timing it correctly? Look at the second one here. Talk about impeccable timing. Of course, you're not trying to do any market timing. All you're doing is a set it and forget it kind of automatic monthly investment program. It's built into this strategy. The strategy will purchase more shares at low prices. In fact, you'll pick up nearly twice as many shares at low prices than at high prices, which is a great thing. And just through monthly investing, your return would not have been the market's negative 24%. You would have been positive 5.9%. Here's an unlikely quote from Napoleon Bonaparte. This was his definition of military genius. I like it for investing genius. He says, the man who can do the average thing when all those around him are going crazy. Dollar cost averaging, I will admit, is extremely boring. You're not going to impress your friends and family with your investment savvy. You're not going to make interesting dinner conversation when the topic turns to investing. But I showed you 97% of the time, this boring strategy of setting an automatic investment plan where it invests monthly on your behalf by doing bank drafts. It is a great technique that's been proven out in history. All right, number 4, remember the most powerful force in the universe. Believe it or not, the genius Albert Einstein once said this: the most powerful force in the universe is compound interest. How about that? Think about all the forces in our natural world that Einstein studied and codified into laws and equations. And he's saying the most impressive force that he's found in the natural world is compound interest, which is an investing thing. So what is it? And why is a person like Einstein so impressed? Well, for this, I'm going to illustrate it using a very classic investing example. It's called a very expensive cup of coffee. If you purchase a cup of coffee out at your favorite coffee shop, wherever you like to go, the national average for a cup of coffee purchased out is $3. If instead of buying that $3 cup of coffee every day, what if you invested that amount of money? How much would you have after 40 years? Well, if you assume the historical growth rate, which I showed you in that dog and owner example of 6.6%, then it grows to more than 210,000 after 40 years, which you may say is like, wow, it's not that great. This is actually a lot of growth, given that you're investing such a small amount of money, $3 a day. So why does it work? It's called compound interest. Well, what's that? This is a really important concept. And if you look up compound interest online, it's very confusing. And I will admit, it's kind of a tough concept to get your brain around, but I'm going to do my best to make it really simple. Here's a definition, a layman's definition from Benjamin Franklin. Yes, that Benjamin Franklin. He says this: compound interest is money makes money, and money that makes money makes money. I know I haven't helped you at all here, but you'll get it here in a minute. So let me show you the math on this problem. So what you're doing is you're investing $3 a day. $3 a day times 365 days in a year is $1,095. That's what goes into the investment account at the beginning of year one. And it's growing, right? Because you're investing it. It's growing at the historical growth rate of 6.6%. At the end of year one, you have this amount now. In year two, compound interest begins to kick in. So first, you invest another $1,095. That's just what you're committed to doing instead of buying that coffee. It gets added to what was already in the account. So at the beginning of year two, you have this amount. And then the whole thing grows again by 6.6%. At the end of year two, you have $2,411.58. All the following years, the math is the same. Okay, so let's think about Benjamin Franklin's definition here. Money makes money. You've got some money in your pocket. It makes money. How did that happen? Well, you invested it. And then he's saying that money that made money, that starts to make money. What he means is you take the whole thing, you don't pull anything out of the account, you reinvest the whole thing, including the interest you made, such that even the interest begins to make interest. This is why it's called compound interest, because the interest is compounding upon itself. This is what it looks like if you graph it. The yellow line shows you what $3 a day looks like. Because you're investing it, it looks like the blue line growing to 210,000. What I want you to notice is the upward sloping line. What starts out looking very modest in the early days looks really impressive the longer you let it go. That's because the interest begins to snowball. This is the reason people tell you to get started investing as early as you can, because you want to get in as early as you can to let it grow over time. Now, many of us are trying to invest more than $3 a day. This is what it looks like if you just max out your IRA. In 2020, the limit was $6,000. If you did that for 40 years, you can see it grows to more than 1.1 million. This is what's called the everyday millionaire. A lot of us could, maybe at a young age, we couldn't do 6,000 a year, but through some careful life planning, such as the budgeting principles we've heard about in this session today, you could sock away a good bit of money, and it grows to an impressive amount over time. I told you that Benjamin Franklin was a big fan of compound interest, and he did something interesting at the end of his life. He ended up giving $5,000 to Boston and $5,000 to Philadelphia, but he put that money into an investment account. And he told Boston and Philadelphia, hey, you can't touch it for 200 years. Well, if you look at the impressive slope of this line at 40 years, you can imagine what it looks like at 200 when compound interest is just really ripping. That $5,000 has grown to many tens of millions of dollars, and Boston and Philadelphia are still spending that money to this day. The reason it works is time is on my side. Yes, it is. Very famous investors here, the Rolling Stones. And one quote from Warren Buffett, you may know his name. He says, the stock market is a device for transferring money from the impatient to the patient. Lesson here is compound interest is a huge, huge force that works in your favor the longer you let it go. So time is a friend. Get started investing as young and as early as you can. Okay, last point, and my favorite. This is the one that's going to be about our faith. And I know this is probably of most interest. I've given you some practical techniques on investing. Now I want to talk about something deeper. And it's this point is invest in businesses, not stocks. I believe that many people have lost sight of the true purpose of investing. Investing has, for a long time, been divorced from its original and most basic purpose, which is to supply capital to businesses. What is investing like today? Well, many people, rather than supplying capital to businesses, they're trying to profit from the market itself, like this big abstract financial concept where they kind of put their money in and ride this wave over time and pull their money out later and, hey, I made money. And they're not really thinking about investing in specific businesses. They're rather just saying, let me own everything. Let me try to do this with as low cost as possible. And many of us even forget that behind the scenes, behind the dollars, behind the account statements, behind the charts, we're going to be owning companies when we invest. Well, what happens when we lose sight of this company connection? Our relationship to investing becomes one of performance only. So when the market's doing well, we're going to feel good. When the market's doing poorly, we're going to be in the doldrums. This is a Catholic professor from DePaul University. This is William Cavanaugh. I really like him. And I was listening to an interview with him many years ago where he was talking about the economy, and he talks about a problem in investing. And so try this on for size. He says retirement accounts tend to just go into mutual funds, where as an investor, not only do I not have any idea how the companies that I have stock in are being operated, I don't even know what companies I have stock in. And these investments, they tend to be run by an elite of managers whose one preoccupation is with profit, increasing the bottom line. Randy Alcorn, who has a great book called Money, Possessions, and Eternity, says that the average Christian whose retirement is in mutual funds or stocks that are managed by others has no clue where God's money is actually going. Have you ever thought about investing and just wondered, where does the money come from? What are the companies that I'm owning in this investment that I've got in my 401k or IRA or whatever? What are the products and the services and the business activities that are generating the profits that are funding my future? And I think importantly, from a Christian perspective, how do we feel about all of it, right? There's a big problem with investing today that we're so disconnected from where our money is going and the companies that we're investing in that we have no idea where it's going. The problem is that of not knowing. And one of the analogies that I like here is the analogy to the mafia wife. So if you've ever watched The Godfather or one of these gangster movies, the mafia wife, she enjoys great profits. She's got the diamonds and the furs and the nice house, the nice car, the vacations, all of it. And she enjoys that, but she has no idea where the money's coming from, right? And she just doesn't ask the questions about what's happening on the other side of the door where these business dealings are taking place. She has no idea whether some of that money might be coming from sources that she would object to. And similarly, as investors, it can be like that for us, where if we have these faith convictions and we're just kind of putting it into a traditional investment, we don't know what we own, and we might be profiting from things that would cause us concern from an ethical perspective. Let me give you a view inside the industry here. This is a very famous fund manager. I heard him speak at a conference a few years back, and I'll never forget what he said. He was talking about his investment approach. He said this: I pride myself on not knowing what's in our portfolios. So I want you to think about this for a moment. This is a portfolio manager. So his job is to pick the companies for his portfolios that his clients will then own. And he's saying he considers it a point of pride to not even know the names of the companies that he's choosing. Now, why would this be? You might have guessed. He's a numbers guy. And when he's looking at a stock, if it's got the right combination of metrics and numbers, hey, it's good, makes it into the portfolio. And he's so disciplined about this, he actually removes the names of the companies from his view so he can just focus on the numbers. And I think that we can appreciate this level of discipline to his process, but we're missing something, right? Something very, very important. What are these companies that we're choosing? What are these companies that we're investing in? And so what I want you to remember is that investing is company ownership. It's very, very simple. Don't get confused by all the numbers and the charts and the ticker symbols and all that stuff. Behind the scenes, investing is a supply of capital to business in exchange for ownership, which gives you the rights to receive any of the profits and the growth. And any of the profits and the growth are going to flow from whatever it is that business is doing in the world, good or bad, which means that every investment decision is a decision that entails our values, our beliefs, and our ethics. And so what we need to do when we invest is, in addition to having profit questions, I think we should have some ownership questions. We should ask the hard questions about what it is we're stepping into and what it is we'll be profiting from. To get you thinking about this, you can think about, okay, for these companies I'm investing in, there's a leadership team, right? How do we feel about the leadership team? How is that leadership team serving customers, employees, suppliers, communities, taking care of God's creation? And what is the net contribution of that company to the world? Is it making the world better through what it's doing? And I think as believers, what we should desire is to invest in businesses that have a value-adding relationship with respect to all of these groups, and that the profits we receive flow from businesses that are serving the needs of the world especially well. Here are some questions to get you thinking about this. Would we want to work under the leadership team at whatever company it is we're investing in? How likely would we be to recommend their product or service? Would we want our son or daughter to work at this company? Would that be a good thing? Scale of 1 to 10, 1's a new flavor of gum, 10's a cure for cancer. How much value does this product that the business is offering, how much value does that bring to humankind? If we walked into a supply center, would we be proud of the quality and working conditions? What would our reaction be if they opened an office in our neighborhood, our community, a supply center plant or factory? And does this company's environmental policy and actions leave a better planet for the future for our grandchildren? These are company ownership questions. If we see investing as just numbers, these don't occur to us. They don't even make sense. But if we remember that investing is company ownership, I think they make all the sense in the world. If someone in your home community came to you starting up a business and they wanted you to invest in it, you would not say to them, okay, send me an Excel spreadsheet of the numbers and I'll let you know. I mean, we'd want to know that, right? We'd want to see the financial projections, but we'd probably have some other questions like, what's your product? How does it benefit people? How do you plan on attracting great employees and building a rich culture, et cetera? We would ask company ownership questions. And it should be no different whenever we're investing in the stock market through things like mutual funds. Let me leave you with this as a final quote. This is from our chief investment officer at my company. And he talks about how taking this business perspective and really pursuing investing with intentionality in the kinds of businesses we're investing in, how that can give us a peace of mind. By investing with Eventide, you will grow in your peace of mind. How do we get peace of mind? Peace of mind is the byproduct of trust, and trust is the byproduct of knowledge. Many people have had the experience of purchasing a stock, becoming nervous as it declined, and then selling out at a loss, perhaps only to see it go right back up. On the other hand, if a person knows the business that the stock represents, trusts the management team at that company, and so comes to believe in the company, these declines are not so troubling. That person is a confident investor because history has shown that great businesses not only endure downturns, but emerge even stronger, making these declines perhaps attractive points to invest further. At Eventide, we try to help investors understand the merits of our portfolio companies so they can better appreciate what they own and thus transcend a mere chart-based financial relationship in investing. Eventide investors can then have greater confidence and less stress because they're not buying mere paper or a derivative, but a portfolio of quality businesses that they know and trust. After all, life should not be spent staring at computer screens, watching ticker gyrations, but instead free from needless stress. At Eventide, we strive to help give you that peace so you can spend your time on what matters most. One last time, timeless truths for investing. Keep your eye on the owner, not the dog. Restrain yourself. Employ a system that forces you to buy low. Remember the most powerful force in the universe and invest in businesses, not stocks. And with
Jason,
that,
that's terrific. Thanks
Yeah.
so much. That's fabulous. You know, just in summary for the financially challenged like myself, it's do steady investing over time, set up systems, things like that. And that last quote is from, you said, the chief investment officer. Finney Karuvula actually started in Eventide investing also, right? He's the original founder, and for all those guests today, he's also a first-generation American. Just a remarkable story of taking a tiny amount of money while he was a medical student at Harvard, I think, and slowly investing it, and it's grown into something really big. We gotta move on pretty quickly here, but one quick question, Jason, is, you know, how would you transition, you know, from something that's is there a graceful way to transition for something that's just sort of investing broadly in funds into something that's a much more intentional, whether it's with Eventide or somebody that has similar commitments to socially responsible and Christianly informed investing? How do you make that transition gracefully? I mean, yeah.
So basically, you know, there's a category of what I would call just traditional investing. And that is kind of putting your money with an investment manager whose one goal is really just increasing the profit. And that's almost certainly going to put you into things that you would not love. So there's, like, you know, just think about the world of products and services on offer. You got pornography and tobacco and gambling and things like abortion. And there's a whole host of problem areas that virtually every traditional investment fund has in them that you're going to be the owner of. And so what's needed is to really have some sort of a values-based option where you're still trying to get a good return, but you're very attentive to where that return is coming from, the kinds of companies you invest in. So there's a small cottage industry, which I'm really hoping will grow much bigger.
Mm-hmm.
And that is called faith-based investing. That's what we do. And it entails kind of bringing ethical, consideration to the kinds of companies we're choosing, and not just profit. So I would encourage you to look into that. And, we're one option. There are others out there. You can do some searching and find a few others.
Terrific, Jason. Well, we need to stop there to respect what our schedule. But if you have a few minutes to stay on, what we're going to do now, everyone, is offer the opportunity to self-select into one of two breakout sessions. Lindsay Stringer is with us. Lindsay used to be was a facilitator with me in Boston of my cohort of the Boston Fellows, and then moved with her family back to Austin, where she comes from, and she's phoning in today. She's going to be allowing us to those of you who are interested in particular in dealing with debt to have a sort of a drill down on that. So that's one option. And then if those who can stick around of our presenters today that can stick around and just field any questions that might come up, I'll be in that group, which is going to be the second option today. So if I think, Nathan, you're gonna give us that option now of self-selecting into one of those breakout groups, and each person here should have the opportunity, if I understand correctly.
Yes.
You want to guide us in that,
Yeah, that's right. So I'm going to open these up. One will be called Q&A with Yvonne and Francine. The other is debt with Lindsay. The only request would be Yvonne, Francine, and Lindsay, please choose your own. Everybody else, go where you want. Kelly, am I correct? We're not all coming back together at
That's
the end
right.
of
This
the-
will be our last
right?
thing. So guys, I do have one request for you. When we're done, and if the questions that come up are not, I would really like for you to tell us your ACT from this time, your takeaways from this time, and I want you to text those to Francine's, to the text that Francine gave us. So the ACT, again, your action point changes, a little bit of overlap here, maybe that is your action point, is a changes that you want to make, and teaching, something that you want to pass on to others, because that's how you really learn stuff, is when you pass it on to other people, to the next generation, whatever it is. So please give us a couple of, that's for our benefit, so we know what you got from this, but also it's for your benefit to actually not leave here without a specific plan of what you want to do, actions, changes, and what you want to teach. And you can text that now or before you go into those three into that text that Francine gave us. So go ahead now, and then Jason, if you have time, and Ted, if you have time to spend these last few minutes in a breakout, that would be, you can self-select also for those.
Okay, so here come the breakout rooms.
So what you want to do is hover over the 0 or whatever the right-hand number is, and then it turns to join, and you join that one.
I do not have the option to join mine. I'm also not seeing options.
I think you actually have to put your cursor over the number, and then it switches to join.
I don't see anything different on my screen than just regular. Where would the numbers be located?
Yeah, so at the very bottom in the bar, it says breakout rooms. So click breakout rooms.
I don't have that option.
Yeah, I
No, I
don't
don't
see
have
that.
that either.
That's odd.
Nathan, can you move people manually?
Interesting. Yeah, I don't have that option either.
Yes, I can. Looks like I can move people manually. So Lindsay, let me put you into yours. Okay. Yeah, so I can actually, I can do that. So Elizabeth, I've heard you're having trouble. Where would you like to go?
I think not debt.
Okay. There you go.
Thank you.
Eric, how about you?
Same, the Q&A.
Q&A, okay.
Thank you.
Okay. Anybody else?
Nathan, can you put me in the not that one as well?
Uh-huh.
Thank
Emily, go into Q&A. Who's next?
It's Anthony here.
Okay.
Could you put me in the question and answer, please?
Yes. All right.
I'll go to the Q&A, Nathan.
Mm-hmm.
Michelle Q&A.
Who is that? Sorry.
Michelle Kim.
Q&A. All right. Would anyone else like to go to one of these?
Could you put me in Q&A? This is Isaac.
Isaac in the Q&A.
Thanks.
All right.
What were the two options?
The options are Q&A with Yvonne and Francine, and I think Kelly's in that one too. And then Lindsay Stringer is joining us to talk specifically about debt.
I'll join debt. This is Andrew.
Okay.
Andrew's iPhone.
Yep. There you go.
I'll join Lindsay's as well. This is Lauren.
Okay, gotcha, Lauren.
Thanks.
Connor, would you like to go to one? Oh, Connor, you're muted. I can't hear you. Oh, I see. Can you tell me in the chat? Or do you want to go to the Q&A? Give me a thumbs up if you want to go to Q&A. Got it. You're going to debt. All right. Kathy, I can't hear you either. So thumbs up for Q&A. Gotcha. All right. So I'm assigning you to the one with Lindsay. Okay. And then I don't see screens for Kyle, or I'm not sure who PGPOW is, but if either of you would like to be assigned. Patrick, if either of you would like to be assigned, let me know. Okay, so Patrick, you want to go to the Q&A is what I'm understanding. You want to go to the debt. Got it. Okay.
Hey, Billy, I think we're done.
Hey, Kelly. Yeah. Looks like Lindsay's is still going. People haven't dropped out of that one yet. So
Yeah. Do you need to run? You can transfer hosting to me, and I could just kind of wait on the outside until they're done.
yeah, I might as well go ahead and do that. I think my family is probably gonna start doing some stuff.
Sure.
Yeah.
Heather's working today, so I don't need to stay on. You can stop recording at this point, maybe. I don't know who controls that, but
I think you do now. I just saw-
I'm just doing okay. So I will.
yeah, I just made you
stop it.
the
Good. Is that cloud based or